You walked in, you should have received this green survey. We would love your feedback. We would love ideas, what you like, what you don't like. You can be brutally honest. We want Rise Up to be the best that it can be.
You can also be super encouraging.
You can also be really encouraging. Thank you, Kelly. But we really want Rise Up to continue to grow and to get better. So please just let us know how we can help equip you best. There's also a couple positions that we're looking to fill. So one of the things, and this is something I'm pretty passionate about, I'm working on putting a fundraising team together of people who would just meet with me maybe every other month and just come up with different strategies and ways that we can fundraise and help grow the money within Rise Up that it takes for us to run this ministry so that we can reach more kids for Christ. So you don't have to have a fundraising background, but if you're like, ooh, that might be kind of fun. I love sharing the Rise Up story. I love meeting with people. Come let me know. And I will make you cookies because that would be awesome for you to join me. Okay, the next position, we're getting ready to make some pretty major changes next year for how the finances are going to work within Rise Up. We're still in the middle of figuring out those systems, but we need a couple people who are math-minded, like spreadsheets, like numbers. We can't tell you right now exactly what that position is going to be because we're still working on it, but it could be, just some remote help, maybe 1 hour a week from home. So if you dream Excel, please let me know. That would be awesome as well. And then the one position that we're still looking for that I know Jenny Herman has talked about for the last couple months is someone who can help us cut and splice videos. So when the curriculum team makes the videos that we show y'all, we need someone that can just kind of help edit them. It's not rocket science, but it's way beyond anything that my brain can do. So if you're pretty good on the computer like iMovie, that would be an awesome role for you and an awesome opportunity for you to join in a different capacity. That's all we have for now. If you have your debit card, can you please turn them into Kelly Rivera? We are collecting all debit cards because, like I said, our finances are going to be done differently next year. Most likely, well, you're definitely not going to have a debit card system next year. It's going to be different. So if we could collect that if you have them, that would be awesome. And that's all. I'm going to pass it on to Kelly now, but thanks y'all for being here.
So I want to introduce our devotion speaker today. Wes Cantrell is the young adult pastor at First Baptist Woodstock, so he deals with my people all the time. He's also been in youth ministry for decades, I think. Decades. Lots of time. And so he is also a volunteer at Hickory Flat. And so we asked him to come and speak to us today, and we're super excited to have him. So Wes Cantrell.
Thanks, Kelly. Kelly's about to age out of my department at the church. Oh, why do I have to stand up here? Oh. Well, I can't hold my Bible. You didn't give me a pulpit or nothing. Hey guys, sorry about this. I have the honor of volunteering at Hickory Flat Rise Up every monthly Friday afternoon. But yesterday, our church provided lunch for all the principals in Cherokee County. And I saw the principal from Hickory Flat Elementary there, and she went through the line. I said, "Hey, how you doing? Love coming to your school on Fridays." And she was like, "I know." And I said, she goes, "I retweet your tweets every time when you tweet out about the Rise Up Club there." I go, "Oh, great." And she goes, "Now don't tell anybody." So I'm about to violate what she asked me to do. She said, "Don't tell anybody, but I have the prayer wall from last week in my office." And I love looking at it. So you guys, Rise Up's making a great, great difference in a lot of people's lives, and I'm excited to get to be a part of it. So appreciate all your hard work, and I just want to know where are all the dudes at? What is up? This is like I used to teach abstinence education in Cobb County schools, and it was the same kind of deal. I was like the only dude there. Mostly ladies are teaching. So anyway, we're going to talk about today how does God go about choosing a leader? Because I think as we work with these kids, we need to be able to kind of spot potential leaders. It was interesting last Friday at Hickory Flat because the fifth graders were serving as ambassadors. And so instead of us running the carnival games, they came and ran the games. And I was just really impressed with the two young men. I don't know why I got put in charge of hopscotch. I don't even know the rules or understand the game at all. But anyway, the two fifth graders who ran the game for me, I literally just sat in the bleachers and watched them. And I saw this leadership potential in these two young boys that I had not noticed before. I basically had seen them as troublemakers prior to that day. But when they were given this responsibility, they rose up to the occasion. And it made me think about talking about, as we lead these Rise Up, as we help lead these Rise Up clubs, that we need to really think about how does God go about choosing leaders, and how is it different from a lot of the ways that we do it. It's campaign season. I hate campaign season. Kelly didn't mention that I'm also a state representative, so I really hate campaign season more than ever. Fortunately, I don't have an opponent this spring, so I'm not having to do any of that stuff. But it's interesting when you contrast the way that, as Americans, we go about choosing our leaders and the way that God goes about choosing his leaders. It could not be more different. If you studied history at all, do you remember, I know you guys weren't alive then, I was barely alive, but when Nixon ran against John F. Kennedy, does anybody remember, study the history of that? There was something significant that happened in that campaign for the first time in history. Anybody remember what it was? It was the first televised debate. First time the debate was televised. So television started to play a role in campaigns. And you might remember that John F. Kennedy was an attractive young man. Richard Nixon, not so much. All right? So most people will tell you that if you listen to the debate on radio, Nixon won the debate by a long shot. But if you watched it on television, John F. Kennedy won the debate because his appearance was so much better. Nixon was sweating. His upper lip had this thing about sweating that was really unattractive. And so it just kind of showed in a real illustrative way how much as Americans we choose leaders based upon appearance rather than policy. A few years later, there was a guy from Missouri who ran for the Democrat nomination, a guy named Richard Gephardt. I'm not sure if he's still living or not, but he had kind of strawberry blonde hair. And he was not doing very well in the polls, and they did some kind of a survey to find out why people weren't supporting him. And the survey results came back in that the reason people weren't supporting him was that his eyebrows were the same color as his skin, and on television it looked like he had no eyebrows. And this is why we're not supporting a candidate. So he began to darken his eyebrows, and he immediately gained 10 points in the poll based upon, oh, well, I can support somebody with eyebrows versus I can't support somebody without eyebrows. Eyebrows are not usually as big an issue for men as they are for some ladies. But anyway, we won't talk about that. But you think about it, in the Bible, probably the most famous leadership choice time that we get to see is when David became king of Israel. Y'all remember this story? He was not the first king, right? Who was the first king? Saul. And why was Saul chosen?
He looked like a king.
He was tall and good looking. This is my favorite part of the story, for obvious reasons. People like Jenny and her husband, John, right, are great politicians, because I'm down there at the Capitol. I'm probably the shortest guy down there. Most of the men are over 6 feet tall. And you have this incredible advantage, I guess, as a tall person. Just people look at you and think, you'd be a great leader. It's also a disadvantage, because I remember when I was youth pastor, I had a kid who was 6'7", 280 pounds as a freshman in high school. And everybody looked at him like he was an adult, but he wasn't. He was just a kid. So it can work against you as well. But Saul was tall and good looking, the Bible says. He says he was head and shoulders taller than anybody else. He was a good looking guy. And he was the type of person that people looked at and thought, man, that guy would make a great king. And so that's what they did. And how'd that work out? Not so good. Okay? He was an awful king. So God comes to Samuel, the prophet, and says, hey, we're going to anoint a new king. And I want you to go to Jesse's house, because one of his sons is going to be the new king. You guys know this story, right? So he gets to Jesse's house in 1 Samuel chapter 16, and the story goes like this. So it was when they came, talking about Samuel, that he looked at Eliab and said, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. Well, who's Eliab? Eliab was Jesse's oldest son. Now, here's the man of God, Samuel. They've just gone through going through this horrible time with Saul, who was chosen based upon his appearance. Samuel lays eyes on Eliab, the oldest son, and what does he do? he makes the exact same mistake again. Eliab looks like he should be the next king. Now, fortunately for us, God intervenes. And God says to Samuel in verse 7, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Then we have Abinadab, comes the second oldest son. Didn't choose that one. Then Shammah, didn't choose that one. Then the Bible cuts us a big break, and just the next four are just kind of lumped into one. The next, they came by. And it's just funny. My imagination goes crazy at these times, because I kind of start picturing, Jesse going, "Okay, Eliab, come in." And Eliab comes walking, it's like kind of going down the runway, and Samuel's checking him out. "Nope, God refused you. All right. What's the next guy's name? Abinadab? Yeah, Abinadab, you come in." And Abinadab does the same thing. For 7 sons come through, and God says no to all of them. You can imagine Samuel's going like, "Wait, what? Did I not hear this right? This is kind of embarrassing. I've come to Jesse's house, and now I got nothing." And so he goes, "Is there another son?" That's literally what he says. Thus, in verse 10, "Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen these." Samuel says to Jesse, "Are all the young men here? Like, you got anybody else?" And he says, "Yeah, they got this one, but he's out watching the sheep, the youngest." Jesse thought so little of his youngest son, David. There's no way God would choose him. Why even have him in the house? God's not going to choose my youngest. He's out keeping the sheep. I don't even have him here, Samuel. Seems like, well, you better go get him. When I was 12, 13-year-old, I'm 56, okay? I was born in 61. I'm not ashamed. So when I was about 10 years old, we had clocks, we had radios, but nobody had figured out to bring those two things into one machine, okay? I know it's funny to you guys now, you're like, all right, so the clock radio was born. It was a brand new thing. They weren't even digital letters. They were a plastic thing. The numbers would actually flip when the minute would change. It was like the coolest thing ever. So I decided for Christmas I wanted a clock radio. My grandmother on my mom's side, Mama Winnie, she was not known for giving extravagant gifts, shall we say. She was like a sweat sock person, new underwear, t-shirt, undershirt, a towel. She's very practically minded. So when we would go to my grandmother's house, or when she would come to ours for Christmas, my parents would always give me and my 3 sisters the same lecture. Your grandmother loves you. Mama Winnie loves you. She's just practical, so she's going to give you something. It's not going to be a game or something that makes noise or something fun. But just know that your Grandma Winnie, she loves you and she means well. And to try to make sure that we were grateful when we opened up the tube socks, right? So that year, my grandmother hands me my gift, and I tear it open, and it is a clock radio. And I immediately go into celebration mode, like over my head, because I can't, my Mama Winnie has come through. This is unbelievable. And as I begin to celebrate, she says 4 words to me. Hold on there, Sonny. You might know what hold on there, Sonny means when you're celebrating. It means that your grandmother has purchased for herself a clock radio and then used the box for your gift. I'm not making this up. So I was like, ooh. So I open up the box, and my grandmother has given me a ceramic squirrel. Somebody on the side of the road, maybe she went to porcelain class at the, or some kind of, I don't know, but I got a ceramic squirrel. So I went from clock radio, but I made what is now known in my family as the box mistake. Do not make the box mistake. How many of you ladies, you use boxes for other, okay. Do not make the box mistake. Don't celebrate until you see what is inside. But you know what? We make the box mistake all the time with people, right? We size them up on the outside, we draw conclusions, we make first impressions, and then, have you ever done that? where you did that, and then you got to know the person, like, oh man, did I have that wrong? They're much worse than I thought. No, or they are such a nice person. I completely misjudged them based upon their outside appearance. I think most of the time we misjudge people in a negative way. But sometimes we misjudge them in a positive way. We think, woo, and then you know, like, ooh, they're not what I thought they were, right? And that's what Samuel was already doing. God's choice for leaders is contrary to human reason. Isaiah says God's thoughts are not our thoughts. 1 Corinthians, Paul says God delights in choosing the weak to confound the wise. Don't make the box mistake. Second thing is that God chooses based upon the heart. Well, what did God know about David's heart that we, and apparently Jesse, did not know at the time? Well, God knew that David was a shepherd, not the Savior. He was a shepherd. And when you read the book of Psalms, most of those were written by David. And a lot of them were written while he was watching the sheep. And we have every indication that Psalm chapter 23 was written prior to the occurrence of this. I can't prove it, but all the indications are because David's shepherding days were soon to be over. So any of the Psalms that he wrote as a shepherd were probably written before this story. And Psalm 23 is probably the most famous psalm in all the Bible. You hear all the funerals. Reveals a lot about David's heart, because it tells us that David had a trusting heart, he had a listening heart, he had an obedient heart, he had a confident heart, he had a grateful heart, he had a hopeful heart. You guys know Psalm 23, right? Do I need to read it? The Lord is my shepherd. Goes on from there. God knew David's heart. God's choice of David as the next king was based upon his heart. So the question for us today is, what's the condition of our heart? When God's looking for leaders, and He knows our heart, people around us may not. And very likely they don't. God knows our heart. Is my heart in a condition where God would look at me and think, that person would make a good leader? And the third thing, God's choice is contrary to human reason. It's based upon the heart. And God's choice is often based upon preparation. God didn't just pluck David out of nowhere. It's kind of like, I can't decide tomorrow that I'm going to be a guitar player. You can't, and just all of a sudden pick up a guitar and be able to play it immediately. It takes years and years and years of preparation, right? And a lot of times we pay musicians a lot of money, not for what they did that day, but for what they did all the years to get to that point, right? We got any musicians in the house? None. All right, good. So, musicians, my son's a worship leader at a church in Washington, D.C., and he has spent the last 12 years of his life developing that skill hours a day. I could never be the worship leader at the church. But a lot of times, those of us who are not musical, we look at the musicians and say, well, what do they do? What's the big deal? They lead a few songs, But we're paying them for all those years. Same with the doctor, right? We're paying them for all that education they've got. That's why it's so expensive. David was prepared to be a leader that day. What do we know about David? Well, in verse 18, it tells us that Saul's having some trouble, and he's looking for somebody to help him with his trouble. And the guy says, look, I've seen the son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite, who is skillful in playing. So David was a musician. So he showed he had discipline. He's a mighty man of valor. So he's a great athlete. A man of war. He knew how to fight. Prudent in speech. Very careful about what the words that he allowed to come out of his mouth. I mean, if you want to know where a person is spiritually, what do they talk about? What kind of words do they use? Pretty good indicator of where they are. And a handsome person. So you don't have to be ugly to serve God. David was a handsome guy. And the most important thing says, and the Lord is with him. So God honored the fact that David was prepared. So what's the condition of our heart, and are we prepared to be used by God? Because God's choice is not like the way we make choices. So, twofold application. Number one, am I where I need to be as a leader? And then number two, as I work with these kids, what criteria am I using as I choose them to step up to different leadership positions and rise up? It's critical that we give kids a chance. Oftentimes it's the ones that you see. I was the troublemaker in 4th and 5th grade. But I can tell you as a former youth pastor, those are the very kids that end up being leaders in the community. And if we can teach them how to harness that energy and use it for good, it can really make a difference. I close with this story. Thinking about preparation. When I was a kid, I was a big fan of cereal. You got any cereal eaters in the house? Anybody like cereal? Okay, my favorite brand growing up was Captain Crunch, okay? They still sell Captain Crunch? Sure they do, right? It's great stuff. Now, I don't know if they still do this or not. A lot of you guys probably are moms and you know the answer to this, but it used to be one of the ways they got you to purchase the cereal was it had a prize inside it. They still do that?
Sometimes. Yeah.
I don't. I'm not gonna. I eat Raisin Bran. They don't give prizes in Raisin Bran. You know, I like to be regular, so that's too much information. All right. So Captain Crunch. So I guess you're saying they still do it. Okay. So my mother never bought store brand. It was always. I mean, never bought national brand. It's always like some off brand. You know, I can't even remember the name of the stuff, but. You know, they was kind of fancy play on words to make it sound like Captain Crunch, but it was really, you know, Sergeant. You know, I don't know what it is. You make it these kind of things like Walmart does with Dr. Pepper. It's like, I don't know, Thunder, Dr. Thunder or something. I don't know. But anyway, so we're going down the aisle, and I see the Captain Crunch box, and it has decals inside of it. One of Captain Crunch and one of his arch enemy, this pirate guy. I don't remember his name. And so I'm like, Mom, and for once, this is the only time I can remember this happening, she gave in to my whining and complaining. She bought the Captain Crunch. We go home, what do? Get a big bowl, pour it all out, get the prize out, and put the cereal back in the box. And so my mother takes those, they were iron-on decals. She takes those decals and she irons on the picture of Captain Crunch onto the front of a pair of my underwear. And on that same pair of underwear, she puts the pirate guy on the back. So this was kind of like my little secret, you know. I would go to school, I think I was in the 3rd grade, and I just had a special kind of skip in my step those days. You know, nobody knew but me that I was wearing the Captain Crunch undies. You know, it's kind of a cool thing that I kind of had this thing. And so one day I go to school, and it happens to be one of those great days when I'm wearing the Captain Crunch undies, and my mother had neglected to tell me about a very significant event that was taking place that day, and that was she was taking me to the doctor. She was checking me out of school to go to the doctor. So I get this call, you know, please send Wesley Cantrell to the principal's office. His mother's here to pick him up. What's this about? So I go, now back in those days, I don't think doctors are as cruel. Defects would be involved in what doctors used to do to us, okay? They took you into a holding cell. The lady would literally say, take all your clothes off except for your underwear. Then she would come back and she would walk you out of the holding cell, down the hallway, to be weighed and measured. And at my height, the measuring thing was traumatic already. But that day, I had on the Captain Crunch underwear. So there I go, walking down the hall with Captain Crunch leading the way, and the pirate guy bringing up the rear, so to speak. I was unprepared for what I went through that day. I'm not embarrassing you, but I think this lady right here is embarrassed. But anyway, the point of the stupid story is that we need to be prepared, because you never know. David had no idea that day, because Jesse didn't even include him, had no idea that that was going to be the day that Samuel was going to show up at his house and anoint him as the next king over Israel. But he was prepared. And his heart was in the right condition, so that when the time came, he was ready to rise up, if you will, and follow God's plan for his life. Let's pray together. Lord, I thank you for all these ladies and for the leaders that they are, and trying to make a difference in their community and get involved in the lives of kids. I so admire that quality, and I just pray that you would bless them as a result of their commitment to you and of their willingness to serve. And Lord, I pray that you would give us great wisdom individually to develop our leadership skills and realize that it doesn't just happen. It's something we have to prepare for. And Lord, would you give us the eyes and the mind of Christ as we look at these kids at these Rise Up clubs, and give us the ability to see them the way you see them, to see the potential that they have, and to recognize those leadership qualities and the preparation that they're making to one day, maybe even today, be a great leader for you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks, guys.
Wes. We're going to take a couple of minutes and just let you all come up and share any of the Rise Up stories, maybe that took place at your school or anything that's happened in your own self or in your family or whatever. But it's kind of open mic time, so I'd ask for don't talk for like 20 minutes, because in case there's other people who want to share, we want to make sure that everyone that wants to share gets a chance. So it's okay if it's awkward for a few minutes. We're cool with awkward.
Hi, I'm Sarah Martin. I'm with the Untitled Chapter out in Marietta City, for those that don't know me. We have had, this is our second year, and we've had another awesome year this year, and we are really blessed. We have a school of a little less than 500 kids, and we have about 165 kids registered. So over 30% of the students in our school come to Rise Up. And, you know, we have so many more that wish they could be there if we had a way to get them home from school. But we have a lot of us in our area. There's a lot of kids that are free and reduced lunch in our area. And so this has been an awesome opportunity for these kids. We had, within our specific school, we have a battered women's shelter. And we're the only one in Marietta City that has this. And so we have a unique opportunity, because we have a lot of very, very transient students. Some that are only at our school for one day, that are literally being rescued and hidden. And we, of course, don't know who those students are. Our lovely administration at our school does a very good job of making sure the kids have no idea who these students are. And so all along, our constant prayer has been that for the kids that are able to come to Rise Up, that are there for a little bit longer, that we would just have that opportunity to just pour into these kids. And of course, I don't know where these kids live. I don't know their information. You know, we keep that anonymous. But I did have a student come to me because no one had come to pick her up yet after the meeting. And I said, well, let's see if we can look up your information and see if we can get in contact with somebody. And she's like, okay, you know, let me tell you my stuff. And she's like, we live in the shelter. And so she revealed that to me. And so it was just a huge answer to prayer that we were able to pour into this child's life for a couple of months, who was literally in a rescue situation, a very volatile situation. And I was just thanking the Lord for that opportunity. And I'm sure that there are more that have been able to come, but that's always been our constant prayer. So we've had awesome success, and just praying that it continues to grow. But I just want to thank you guys. I know our prayer team has been praying. Specifically, that was one of the things we asked for this year. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Jessica Mosley, and I'm at Hickory Flat with Wes. Pray for us. Wes is also my neighbor, so that works out well. But in our March meeting, we had a challenging situation with a student. So challenging that as soon as our meeting was over, I had to call Kelly. And this child has a reputation already at school. So going into Rise Up, I had never met this child before that meeting. But on that day, I got to know exactly who he was. And it was bad enough that I had to call the principal at 5:30 in the evening on a Friday to have a conversation with her that I did not want to have. But I had prayed about it, and through my conversation with the principal and continuing to pray about it, because I knew I was going to have to contact the mom, she just kept saying, first of all, let me tell you, our principal is a believer who posts scripture on her personal Facebook page every other day. But she walks the walk, and she's just not talking. And so she said, extend grace to this parent. Go above and beyond to extend grace. Love her, especially more than some of the other parents, probably because of the situation that has come. She said, I can't tell you a whole lot, but just love her. And I was like, okay. So I just kept praying about it. By the time our family life had calmed down, it was too late to call that night. So probably around 11 a.m. Saturday morning, I gave her a call. And I told her who I was. And she said, we had a great conversation. To the point of, we left it really well. And then the next week, I just happened to be at school doing something with my son at the school. And she walked in to pick up her 2 students to go to the dentist. And before her kids came down, I got to talk to her one-on-one and say, hi, by the way, I'm Jessica. I'm the one who called you on Friday or Saturday to talk, and she said, thank you so much for calling me and having this conversation. And I was really worried about it because I had been told by a million other people that there was drama with this student and with this family. And it's never the call you want to make. But since then, we've had a couple of more conversations. At our last pickup, she went out of her way to say hi to me because somebody else was handling pickup at that point, but she went out of her way to say hi. And I feel like we've really turned a corner for her two students, and especially showing love to the one who has behavioral problems. He received services at the school, but we've really gone above and beyond now since talking to Kelly and the principal, and it just worked out really well. And it really showed a lot of the other parents that we still, protect them, love them, and it's just hard. So.
I'm Pamela, and I get to co-labor with Jenny, Herman, and all of the fabulous Megan over there at Crabapple Crossing Elementary, and everything just runs so smoothly. It's just been the easiest volunteer job that I have ever done. Really, she's amazing. But one of my favorite things that's been surprising to me this year, I got to do, Jenny kept pushing me to get involved more and more, and I'm so glad that she did. And I got to help with the ladies' Bible study, but one of my, I don't even know if we've talked about this or not, but one of my secret little favorite things for me, I get to do the game time, and I get to do kind of the wrap-up, the C3 stuff, so I'm up front a lot. So when the kids are doing the carnival, I go into our other location and get the whole group game set up and all that stuff. And what happens in our gym at that time is the after-school kids who are not in Rise Up are in the gym as well. And they're not treated very well by whatever group this is. I don't know who it is or what the situation is, but month after month after month, you see how the kids are treated in this other after-school program. And it just breaks my heart, particularly because I know what's going on over where we are. And so one of my favorite things to do is just sit with some of those kids, just chat with them and just tell them that they have value and that the way that they're being treated hurts my heart. And that I would love for this one Friday a month if they could come be with us. And I promise you, you're going to have a great time, you're going to feel loved. And every month I would invite them. And, it's probably there for a reason. Parents don't want them there. I don't know what the situation is. But just even yesterday, I was at school having lunch with my son, and one of those after-school kids that's not in Rise Up just came up and gave me this great big hug. And she and I have a relationship, and she was like, I'm going to do that thing next year. I'm going to make sure my mom signs me up for that thing next year. And so when I think about the Rise Up and the impact that my little role has had this year, I think there's like 4 or 5 kids in this after-school program that has nothing to do with Rise Up. And what's cool is that they have all these parents coming to pick them up in our Rise Up spot, and so they're hearing the Bible story. Parents have to stand there who aren't in Rise Up and listen to the Bible being taught from the cafeteria where they pick up their after-school kids who have nothing to do with Rise Up. So I just think it's cool because we have these kids who want to be there, and then there's parents who are a part of it that don't even know what's happening, but they have to stand there and hear the gospel. And so to me, that's amazing. It's not just the program, it's just those side moments. You don't know how God's going to use those. And that wasn't even on my radar this year, that those kids were going to be kids that I had to look out for. But they were just, what are you doing today? And why are you dressed like that? And what are those games? And I'm like, oh man, you guys, you got to come. It's so fun. And I promise you will feel loved and you will feel valued. And, you can come here and really just kind of take a breath, from all this other stuff that's going on over here. So that's what I wanted to say, that God uses Rise Up in multiple ways that maybe we don't even realize. You've got the programs and all those things that are very specific, but you don't even know how God's using this program in just different ways around the school.
Hi everybody, I'm Lindsay, and I work with at Timberridge. And I just wanted to share a little bit about our 5th grade ambassador program this year. I'm always behind the computer, and I don't even really get to work with small group kids because I'm always, my computer is like my best friend. Not really, but my kids would probably say that. But this year, I kind of took a step out, and I have 3 kids, and my oldest went on to middle school, so he was a 5th grader last year, and I helped with the 5th grade ambassadors last year with Jenny, but she kind of led it, and I was kind of just her helper and everything. But this year, I had to kind of step out and be the head person for our 5th grade ambassador program, and I just wanted to say what a pleasure it was. I had so much fun. I think I even had more fun with those kids and the small meetings that we had than I did at the regular big meetings, just because it's more my personality, just a little quieter. They have plenty of energy for sure, but one of the cool things about it that I realized as I was kind of putting together the last AD presentation and kind of going over what I was going to say about these kids is that this was our first crew of kids that came through Rise Up as kindergartners, when it started as Wolfie's Warriors in Jenny's backyard. So they were the kids that were going to be going into kindergarten. So my son Ryan was one of those kids, and we had, it was just amazing, the retention that we had with these kids. And I found old pictures of them in the backyard and pictures of them when we were wearing our red Wolfie's Warrior shirts. And to see them then standing on the stage, and we had 28 5th grade ambassadors this year. I mean, we were averaging about a little over 100 students at our schools, a little smaller this year, but yet we have retained almost close to 30 5th graders coming and enjoying serving. And so I just wanted to encourage, I don't know how many of you guys are doing the small groups outside of the big Rise Up meeting. So we would meet at school, which made it really convenient. Kids would just stay after school, and we would meet, and the curriculum team has put together 5th grade activities and games and stuff, so they just made it really easy, especially for someone like me that doesn't have real teaching ability. But we were able to come, and the kids, they just ate it up. They loved it. We got to pray over them. We got to share scripture and devotion time, but play fun games, and they just really enjoyed being together. And so anyway, just wanted to encourage you guys, if you all have a 5th grade program and maybe aren't doing those outside meetings, if you have someone that can step up to run those, the kids, they just absolutely love it. And it helps them become great leaders and move on to middle school and be confident in who God has made them. So just share that.
Hey guys, you're lucky I'm not going to ask you to volunteer for something. Every time I come up here, I'm like, now they know me as Jenny, the person that's going to ask them to do something. But I wanted to just say exactly to Lindsay's point, we really worked and got together a 5th grade ambassador program this year, and it has been amazing. And like you guys, we just meet the Wednesday before our Friday meeting at school. The kids stay after school in one of the 5th grade classrooms, and to see those kids come together, especially our last meeting, we all come together, right, and pray before the rest of the kids come in for Rise Up. And every month I say, does anybody else want to pray? Nobody does, and I'll pray for them. But this month we did. We had one of the 5th grade girls step up and pray for every one of them, and it was just amazing, amazing to see. So I really do encourage you guys, find 2 5th grade moms. Go ahead and ask them now and say, hey, is there any way that you can do this next year? Because that really kind of goes into my next point. Those volunteers probably got more out of it than the 5th graders. We just finished our 3rd year at Crabapple Crossing, and if there was anything that I think God really worked on in our chapter this year, it was the volunteers. I get like just emotional thinking about it. We have the most amazing volunteers, but it is because God is the center of our volunteers, and that is really a testament to Pamela and Marie and all the effort that they have put in. They started a Bible study, and y'all, I cannot tell you, it's one thing to have a Bible study at church, and you all come together at church, and you're all one common ground. But it is another thing to have a Bible study of moms from all different walks of life, but you're all there together because of Rise Up. And looking back at those meetings, it's just unbelievable to see God work and to see these moms come out of their shell and to talk about what's going on in their lives. And it has brought us together. This year has been amazing for the kids. It has been super amazing for the volunteers. And actually, after this meeting, we have over 25 volunteers. We're all coming together for a luncheon at noon at one of the mom's house, and it's because we've bonded. And so if there's anything that I can encourage you guys to do next year, it is to bond as a volunteer group. And kind of like Wes said, you're going to learn things about people that you had no idea. There are people that I love even more to this day because we did a Bible study together or because I got to know them. Marie Tittle is now going, and she is eating lunch with our volunteers just to get to know them. Take a day out of your week and just go eat lunch with these volunteers because there is so much that God has in store for your chapter when you guys are a team. So that's my encouragement for today. 5th grade ambassadors and become a real Rise Up team.
I know I'm not going to stand here long because, we have had a lot of transition in our family this year. I'm telling everybody right now, I'm homeless and rich because we've sold our house and we haven't purchased the new one. So, but what has been awesome for me to see this year is I was one of a few people that helped start the Kincaid chapter of Rise Up. And earlier this year, I've talked with some different people, and it was like, I was holding too tightly to Kincaid Rise Up. And the thing is that yes, I helped start it, but it was nothing about me. And so it's been so cool to see Jennifer come in and take over the curriculum and everything so that I felt completely confident walking away and moving to, I'll be at Trit next year. Don't know what that'll look like, but the thing that was just really special to me though is when we were looking at where to move, my son Jay, who's in 2nd grade, his first question was, do they have a Rise Up? And when I said yes, he said, okay. So just know that we are making a difference in kids' lives, and I'm so excited for the future of Kincaid Rise Up as well, because I know that fresh life is coming into it, and that's just real exciting too.
One of the leaders, I'm Lindsey Poulos, one of the regional liaisons now, but one of the leaders with Jennifer that helped start it at Kincaid. And both of us have daughters that are currently in 8th grade, so they were in the 5th grade that year. So I was sort of one and done because I have twins at Kincaid, or I thought I was. And that kind of speaks to what I'm coming up here to talk about. Because Jennifer was so great about making sure to find a place for our daughters to stay involved. And she was very graceful about knowing when you get into middle school, if any of you have middle schoolers or high schoolers, you know this, like it's a little bit crazy in a different kind of way. You get very busy and it is hard sometimes to do all the things that you want to do. And so, but she was very consistent and faithful about putting it out there that if the girls wanted to come, they had a place to serve. And sort of speaking to what he talked about, giving them an opportunity to lead, even if it was a little bit uncomfortable. So anyway, the girls did that each week, and they would come. Catherine Ann came more often because Jennifer was leading the meetings, and we were in and out a little bit. But as Megan continued on, my daughter, it became very important for her not to miss. She became very connected to her girls and to the group that she was leading, so much so that when the leadership team would come out, or the volunteer list would come out, sometimes she would get moved around, and she's like, Mom, I want to be flexible, but can I please be with my group, my girls? And so I would come to Jennifer and be like, I'm so sorry, is there any way, she can be with this group? But this last week was their last meeting, and I saw my daughter gather her girls around and on her own, and just realize how important it is to give back what had been given to her. And she reached out to these girls and she encouraged them about middle school. She told them that she knew they were going to do great, that they had been prepared, that they were ready for this moment, and she gave them all her phone number, and she just told them to call her anytime that they need to, and she gathered them around and prayed for them. And I'm about to send this child to high school, and I'm scared to death. So that was a beautiful moment for me. So thank you to Jennifer for continuing to ask us, even when we said no sometimes. And thank you to Rise Up for providing a place for my middle schooler and high schooler to be a part and to continue to grow in her walk. So if that is, I don't know what that will look like, because I think for Kincaid, the beautiful thing is I think Kincaid is moving to an earlier time, but now that we're going to high school, we are also moving to an earlier time. So maybe there still can be an opportunity for her to be involved, and I know that she would love to do that when she's able. So anyway, so if you guys have kids like that, I just want to encourage you when you can to consider an opportunity, and also consider reaching out to those who do have those and finding a place. Be flexible with them. Sometimes they can't come, but when they can, it's doing good things in their life as well. So.
Hey, I'm Tanner. I'm from Little River. Makes me really nervous to talk in front of anyone, so I'll be short of breath up here. I was just going to share that, what was it, the March meeting, where we did the Easter story. Is that March? It was really sweet. We have a little boy in our neighborhood who got kicked off the bus at the beginning of the year. He lives on our street, doesn't have a great reputation, but we have befriended him as a family. And anyways, he came to Rise Up for the first time in March, and it was really sweet because obviously I had my eyes on him, watching him the whole time, and he was just totally engaged the whole Easter story. And then as we're driving back home, I was just asking him, how did you like it, whatever, and he was like, it was so fun, it was great, whatever. And he was like, I never knew what we celebrated Easter for, or why we celebrated Easter. And it was just really sweet because that's like the foundation of our faith, and so anyways, it just presented like another opportunity. We were talking about it, and he's got a sister who is in middle school, and she stopped by later, or the next morning, and we were talking about Rise Up some more, and she wanted to come and she wanted to help, and she also, afterwards she was like, Miss Tanner, will you tell me the Easter story later? And so it was really sweet because just a couple weeks passed, it was spring break, and then she came back, and her brother as well, and she was like, hey, can I hear the Easter story now? And this was like 2 weeks later. And so it's just a really cool opportunity to share the gospel with both of them, and they both want to follow Jesus and still need to work on connecting with the parents and everything, but it's just been a really sweet opportunity just to be able to have something like Rise Up at the school, to invite friends, to invite neighborhood kids that might not be going to church, you don't know what their home life is like, etc. So very thankful for having this opportunity. So.
I was so not expecting to be emotional today. Okay, we're going to close the meeting. I guess this is the official closing of the year, but thank you guys. I know that y'all have a million things that you could be doing, but you guys serve so faithfully, and I'm just so grateful because none of these children would ever hear about Jesus, or hear about Jesus certainly within the school walls. And so I just want to personally thank you for all that you've done for Rise Up, and I know it's hard, and we all have targets on our back. There's so much spiritual warfare. Nancy is here. She is our incredible prayer warrior. I know that most of y'all know who she is, but she emailed me even yesterday just saying, how can I pray over the summer? So just know that you and your children are covered. And one thing that's just near and dear to my heart, because it seems to be the target that Satan has for me, maybe it's not for you, but there's no greater battlefield than our own children and their character. So when your kids mess up, just remember that that's why we're doing this. Don't ever feel inadequate. There have been multiple times I've said to John, my husband, honestly, character education, my kids are struggling. And that's exactly why we're doing this. And so please know you're prayed for. We're so grateful for you. This is a family. We are always here for you. If at any point you have any prayer requests that you want shared or not shared, Nancy, I know, would be honored to be praying for you. You can email her at pray@riseupforchrist.com. So anyways, let's close in prayer. And I pray for a summer of refreshment for y'all. God, thank you so much for not only the people who are here today, but for all of the people, for the 700 volunteers who serve, but particularly for the leaders who take on this role. I pray for blessings and protection over the children represented amongst the leaders. I pray for refreshment this summer for all of us, that we can just be excited, that we would be aware of the conversations we have at swim team or at the pool or at the park with the different people amongst our schools. But may we be bold and gentle all in the same time, Lord. Thank you for choosing us to speak your name inside the public school walls, and I just pray that we would be pleasing to you and that we would come back next year excited, that this would not be a burden for anyone, but that we could just see the huge opportunity and the kingdom work that we are doing in this, even when we might not always see the fruit, but that we can trust that there is so much going on behind the scenes that we can't see on this side of heaven. And so I praise you and thank you for these incredible women. In Christ's name, amen.